Fox Sports 910, Benjamin Garcia filling in for Jody Ayler today on The Drive. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show, whether that's Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter. For you Gen Zers out there that also listen to The Drive, and it's not just, the Jody Aylers of the world. When I say that, I mean the 40-year-olds of the world. We don't discriminate here, but we do welcome the younger generation as well. AM radio classic, and you never can beat the classics. Follow me on all things social media, Ben Garcia Show. It's very interesting. We saw yesterday that the new wide receiver market continues to get diluted with more and more players getting deals. And at what point, when is enough enough? I thought about this real long and hard yesterday. Benjamin Garcia filling in for Jody Ayler here on The Drive. Jalen Waddle got a new extension, making him one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL. Now, listen, it's kind of a so-so list because we all know Justin Jefferson's going to get a new deal. CeeDee Lamb's going to get a new deal. Tyreek Hill likely will get another rework deal. But either way, average annual value for Jalen Waddle's new deal, $28 million a year. Now, how much does that matter? The guaranteed money, all that good stuff. But the average annual value on it is $28 million a year. Wide receivers are getting insane amounts of money. And there was a point when running backs were getting an insane amount of money. David Johnson did. Zeke Elliott did. And then it kind of dried up. Is the wide receiver market starting to move at the high point and then will come crashing back down to earth sooner rather than later? Because Justin Jefferson hasn't gotten his new deal yet. He's, of course, waiting on whoever it is, a CeeDee Lamb or someone else to get another major deal so that he can top that. Jamar Chase needs a new deal. T. Higgins needs a new deal. Brandon Ayuk needs a new deal. And it's interesting because the running backs used to be getting paid exorbitant, crazy amounts of money. And then everyone and their mother was able to find a new running back in the third round. Whether it was Kareem Hunt, the Cardinals just did it this year with Trey Benson. At what point does the wide receiver bubble pop? Because it's going to pop at some point. And so whether it's Jalen Waddle getting a new deal, now Tyreek Hill has been reported, has wanted a new deal since the end of last season. If the Arizona Cardinals, let's say, traded for Justin Jefferson, let's say they just traded for Justin Jefferson, right? And they gave away the 4th overall pick like Jody and I have speculated for months. Feels like we're the first people on that. But Justin Jefferson comes here, and you give him $35 million a year. Jalen Waddle just got 28. It's not insane to think average annual value, Justin Jefferson gets that. And Kyler Murray makes $46 million a year. Can you really allocate $70+ million at that point, if my math isn't wrong, almost $80 million to one position? I'm sorry, to two positions. Because the NFL is not about how many stars you have. It's about quarterback, pass rusher, corner, fix the O-line. I would argue wide receiver is like the 5th most important position. It's the most flashiest, and it's the funnest, no doubt about it, maybe outside quarterback. But paying a wide receiver $35 million a year just feels gross. It just does. And if you're the Vikings, you're in a good position to do it because you don't have Kirk Cousins anymore. You're not paying J.J. McCarthy anything. But if you already have a star quarterback, like the Cardinals do in Kyler Murray, like the Bengals do in Joe Burrow, like insert star quarterback here, can you really afford to pay both? If Justin Jefferson gets $35 million a year and Jamar Chase next year gets $36 million a year, how far are we away from giving wide receivers $40 million a year? I don't know if you can swing that. And so at some point, you're just going to trade these guys off or turn the wide receivers into the new running backs and just draft a new wide receiver in the second round every year because they're coming out every single year. Puka Nacua is a great example. Justin Jefferson, late in the first rounds, a great example. Brandon Ayuk, late in the first round, is a great example. A.J. Brown was a second rounder. You can find wide receivers in the draft. And until I realized Justin Jefferson was going to get $35 million, maybe more, if you're the Cardinals, when Marvin Harrison Jr. is ready to get up, could it be, who knows, $40 million a year if Marvin Harrison Jr. turns into what we all think he can be? And so it's, to me, it doesn't show me that the wide receiver position outside Marvin Harrison Jr. is so important for development for this young Arizona Cardinals team. It tells me that the tight end position is so much more important for the Arizona Cardinals. Yesterday, Jody had basically mentioned the development of Michael Wilson matters so much to the Arizona Cardinals because you have to get cheaper if you're going to pay all these wide receivers crazy amounts of money. You can't afford to play Marvin Harrison Jr. at some point $40 million and another wide receiver $20 million. So can Michael Wilson be good enough for the Cardinals to hand out a $15 million contract to? I disagree a little bit with that. I think Michael Wilson is as good as gone if he's a number 2 wide receiver. You can't pay him. So the development to me is so important for Trey McBride than it is for Michael Wilson. You want to know how much the highest tight ends get paid? Let me compare the two. The wide receivers in the NFL, these are the average annual values of the top 5. $32 million, $30 million, $30 million, $28 million, $28 million. That's the top 5. And Justin Jefferson's about to get a new deal. CeeDee Lamb's about to get a new deal. Brandon Ayuk's going to get a new deal. Jamar Chase is going to get a new deal. All those guys could very quite easily pass everyone else on that list. $28 million is the lowest right now. Let me read you the top 5 wide receiver or top 5 tight ends in compensation. The Cardinals might actually be able to afford Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. someday. And this is why. The tight ends don't make that much money. Travis Kelce, $17 million a year. Darren Waller, $17 million a year, who released a ridiculous song yesterday, but we'll get to that later. TJ Hawkinson, $16.5 million. George Kittle, $15 million. Dallas Goedert, $14 million. Mark Andrews makes $14 million a year as the 6th highest paid tight end in the NFL. If Trey McBride can be a real tight end 1 for the Arizona Cardinals, they can afford to keep both because the tight end position is still undervalued and doesn't make nearly as much money as the wide receiver position. We saw Christian Kirk get $20 million a year. Trey McBride's not going to touch that. He might make $15, $16 million a year, but he ain't going to make 26. So if Marvin Harrison Jr. can be an elite wide receiver prospect like we all know he can be, if Trey McBride can be a legitimate tight end 1, and Kyler Murray can continue to wow us with his maturity and growth as a player on and off the field, this team could be set up for years. Because they get cheap at the tight end position. We'll talk about later how Kyler Murray's a bargain at this point at quarterback. And then you can afford to pay Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's indeed going to be a bona fide top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. The development of Trey McBride is the most important on this Cardinals team. And I have no worries that he can become one of the best tight ends in the NFL.